Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Friday, the 27th of December, 2024, which makes this the news for Thursday, December 26th, day 1037 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, coming to you live at 5 from Kyiv, this major European capital that is under siege. Hey, Mel, how you doing? I see the peeps are coming in. There's Steph. Anthony Tommy Tom is here. Cool. PT. Debbie. Hey, Deb. Hey, Nicola Jones. Hey, Robert Chapman. Chef Deb. Hey, Cheyenne. James Boudreau, how do you do? Jer Bear. Oh, I like that handle. That's a good handle. Hey, Paul Smith. How do? Bobby's in silent mode. Hey, Joe. Evening, all. Evening, everybody. Well, what a difference a day makes, huh? Christmas Day, the Russians sent 78 missiles and 106 drones. And last night, Buenas noches, Nightshade. And last night they managed to send 31, at least 11 of which were decoys. They weren't even real attack drones. So they maybe sent 20 attack drones last night. So on Christmas Day, they pummel the energy infrastructure of the country. They make a big show, and the very next day they can't do shit. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable, these guys. Hey, Dark Irish. Let me see here. So, guys, I can't thank you enough for your generosity this Christmas. I really appreciate it. I'm at the point now where I'm thinking I won't go away. I might just have the surgery done so that I can get the tooth thing taken care of. I might just do that. So I really appreciate it because I miss this bridge, boy. I miss this bridge. And unfortunately, I require some surgery before the bridge can go in. So because of everybody's really incredible generosity this Christmas, which I appreciate, I might just do that. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. We'll see. So thank you, everybody. I want to thank... shoot. I don't want to get this wrong. Hold on a second. Hold on 1 second. I don't want to get it wrong because I have a bunch of people that I owe live sponsorships to, and I want to make sure we do this in order. So give me 1 second here. Sorry about this. I did look it up before, but it's gone right out of my head. I'm so sorry. Oh, for the love of God. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, let's see here. Really, I mean, it's Rocco tonight. That's who it is. See, now I know Rocco's real name, which is a great name, by the way. I forgot my reading glasses. Do I look like Louise Dalton? I don't think so. Hey, Mrs. Toad. Very nice talking to you today. Thank you. Hey, Renee Herman. How's everybody doing? Any insights on the Azerbaijan airline crash? Is that where we want to start tonight? Let's start with that then. So, as we know, Azeri Flight J28243 from Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, to Grozny, the capital of Chechnya, crashed in Aktun, Kazakhstan, after being targeted by a Russian pantsir. This is pretty official now. This is pretty official. We've got 4 sources close to the investigation in Azerbaijan saying that it was the Russians. You got the Azeris saying that 3 separate airports in Orkistan refused to let that plane land after it was hit. The thinking is that the Russians were trying to drive it to crash over the Caspian Sea so that there would be no evidence. And no survivors, by the way. There are, in fact, 25 survivors of that at last count. There are folks with injuries. The number of victims is likely to rise. It's currently at 38. Merry day after. How many civilian planes has Russia shot down now? God, a bunch, right? We can go all the way back to MH17, Malaysian Air 17. They've shot down in the last 3 months, they've shot down a crop duster, 2 light planes of their own because air defense is itchy trigger fingers. They're all so nervous. Yes, Mrs. Toad, that was the last number that I saw was 25 people managed to survive that crash, which it has to be all put down from, hey, Tajikistan, I don't think we ever had a Tajik on here before. So welcome. So now dig it. All the evidence indicates that it was shot down by the Russians, and the Russians tried to force it to fly. The captain, I don't know if he's alive or among the victims, but the captain is an incredible hero in this story, in my opinion. He managed to get that thing 300 miles, about 450 kilometers, over the Caspian Sea and managed to get it on the ground with some of the people managing to survive. But by all accounts, it is the Russians. Now, look, it's understandable. I'm not even going to take the piss out of the Russians for this one. Grozny was under a drone alert. There were drones in the air. It was foggy by all accounts. And so things do happen. But the thing you don't do is direct the injured plane out to sea so that it can dive bomb into the ocean, killing everybody and hiding all the evidence of your mistake. That's the insane part here. That's the part that is all Russia, all the time, to the max, right? That's Russia. Anyway, so that's what I got. Let me see if I got anything else. Oh, part of the problem was that they were running electronic warfare to jam the drones around Grozny, right? What should have happened was the airport should have been shut down and traffic should have been redirected somewhere else. Instead, they're running electronic warfare jammers that it's being said disabled the plane's communication system. So the plane couldn't even alert itself. Now, Fitz, I know what you're saying, right? And I understand the cynicism that nothing will happen in the end, though. This was an Azeri plane. The Azeris have challenged the Russians in the last year. Nagorno-Karabakh was an all Azeri challenge to the Russians, and the Azeris won. The Azeris unalived 9 command officers of the Russian peacekeeping force in their HQ, and Russia did nothing. Because they can't, right? They are so stretched at this point. The whole skin is so thin and brittle that the slightest pressure could smash the whole thing that we call Russia today. That's where they're at, whether they admit it or not, no matter how they bluff and bluster, no matter how many sea cables they try to cut. That's the reality of Russia. Thin and brittle. I do want to make a correction from last night's live. In last night's live, I said that in the big Christmas missile attack, 3 Ukrainians were unalived. That is not correct. I'm very happy to say that I got that wrong, and the official number of dead from yesterday's attack is 1. 1. Nearly $1 billion. Right? And I'm not diminishing that 1 death. Every Ukrainian lost is a sin and a crime. So I'm not trying to diminish that. But think about this from the perspective of the Russians. They maybe spent $1 billion to send 78 missiles and 106 drones. I mean, what does it cost to put those backfire bombers in the air? I agree, Terry, it's 1 too many. But the reality is their attacks are ineffective. Ukraine picks itself up by its bootstraps and moves on every fucking time. Every time. Just like last week. What did everybody do after that big missile attack on Kyiv? Everybody picked up a broom and swept up the glass. That's what they did. So the Ukrainians are not feeling sorry for themselves. The Ukrainians are not intimidated by this Russian madness. And in fact, the Ukrainians are doing a hell of a job defending themselves from it. A hell of a job. I think we all have to agree. Indiscriminate. That's a good word, Mrs. Toad. Indiscriminate and ineffective. Negligent. I mean, really, really casual negligence on the part of Russia with this shit. Okay, now, on the subject of the Christmas attack, Biden said that, and quite correctly, I must admit, he got this right. The purpose of this outrageous attack was to cut off the Ukrainian people's access to heat and electricity during winter and jeopardizing the safety of the grid. Hit it right on the head. That's exactly what the point of this attack was. He went on to say, I have directed the Department of Defense to continue its surge of weapons deliveries to Ukraine, and the U.S. will continue to work tirelessly to strengthen Ukrainian position in its defense against Russian forces. So good words. Let's see if he can come through with it. Because frankly, the United States has not been great in coming through with our promises these last few years. It's really very embarrassing for me. Zelensky went on to say that Putin chose Christmas to attack what could be more inhumane. And he's right. Right? PT says it nice. Using winter as a weapon is despicable. Despicable. Will Ukraine shut the gas pipeline off soon? Yes, Anthony. So everybody knows, right, that there is a deal in place that lets Russia transit natural gas across Ukraine to a couple of landlocked countries. Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia. Moldova is not landlocked, but it's interior, and it doesn't have a developed port infrastructure the way that other European countries do. Mostly those four, and Austria. Those are the 5 countries that are continuing to buy Russian pipeline gas through the Ukraine transit. Now, Ukraine has said for the last 3 years nearly of war that that pipeline is going to be shut down when the contract expires and the contract will not be renewed. So all these countries have had 3 years to do something about it. And the competent ones have, right? Moldova has found alternative sources and its reserve tanks are full. Austria has every single storage facility full to the brim with natural gas, and they're looking at alternative suppliers. Hungary and Slovakia did not do that. Same with the Czech Republic. They're prepared. Competent governments knew that this was coming, right? The ones that don't lick Putin's boots and buy into the notion that, oh, don't worry, my friend. By January 1, 2025, there is no more Ukraine, right? The Czechs, the Austrians, and the Moldovans didn't listen to that shit. Hey, Renvox. Hungary and freaking Slovakia did. Slovakian President or Prime Minister Fico just made an unscheduled trip to the Kremlin to beg him for gas. Disgusting. The Czech president, in response to that trip, said to him, don't you have any self-respect? Czech Republic doesn't have to kowtow to a mass murderer in order to secure our energy infrastructure. Hey, Norbert. Norbert, on behalf of the entire United States, I want to apologize for Donald Trump. Believe me, it was as much of a shock to me when my fellow Americans put that copper-tone con man back in the White House. I'll tell you, I was very happy that Mike Johnson stood up to him and kept the government open. Thanks, Baby Yoda. Right? Like, Americans of conscience are all embarrassed by this situation. Oh, yeah, Musk and don't forget Putin. We would not be suffering Donald Trump if it weren't for Vladimir Putin. That's the reality. Now, you can say that, Elizabeth, but I know lots of Americans, my own family, who are all bought into this Russian narrative that the Democrats, the Democrats are the worst thing that's ever happened. Anthony, you're not wrong, but the damage he's going to do to the United States of America could be irreparable, honestly. Suppose this son of a bitch decides to go to war with Greenland, or with Denmark over Greenland, which is a real thing. Trump is the man. Trump isn't even a man. He's a rapist. That's what Trump is. Come on. Give me a break. Trump is the man. Maybe Bermuda, but I don't know. Look, Greenland is strategically important to the United States. He was not acquitted. That is a lie. Get him out of here. Somebody please show Bob the door. I'm not listening to Trump apologists in here. Huge baby. Here's the thing about Greenland that I think we all have to understand. Our early warning nuclear radar detection systems are all in Greenland. Or not all, but a good chunk of them. Remember, the Earth really is round. And so for fast line of sight communication, you got to have facilities all around the world that can talk to each other line of sight. Because if your satellites go out, you got to have a backup. So our early warning detection systems are in Greenland. Another thing with Greenland is it's rich. It's vastly, vastly rich in mineral resources. As the recent phosphorus discovery showed, and the recent lithium discovery showed. And the more and more that the ice sheets melt, the more and more that those resources are available for exploitation. So it's too costly right now, Bermuda, right? It's too costly right now. But at the rate that the ice sheets are retreating and the accelerated rate, there will come a time when that's not the case. Anyway, we talked about the Azeri flight. Let's talk about Iran and Russia as the axis of evil expands. First of all, I'll tell you, it really ground my gears when I saw the Merry Christmas card from the Iranian embassy to the people of Ukraine. Just disgusting hypocrisy. These people are doing everything they can to enable the unaliving of Ukrainians every day at the hands of the Russians. And yet they send this Christmas card to the people of Ukraine, wishing for peace and prosperity and eternal friendship and all this shit. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. That's on top of the fact that the Iranians are about to sign a mutual defense pact with Russia. So back in June, we saw the Russians sign a mutual defense pact with the North Koreans. And now we see North Korean troops on the battlefield in Kursk, even though the Russians are trying to do everything they can to hide that, because they don't want their own people to know that they're in fucking trouble and that they have to depend on outside help to hold the line and to get their own territory back. Anyway, oh, Stuart McKenzie is here. Hey, Stuart, how you doing? Stuart, look, man, you can kick me $5 a month, right? Join the Patreon. Don't send cars where TikTok takes 60% of the money on the GIF, whatever. Just a thought, man. Think about joining the Patreon. Oh, also, if you don't follow this channel and you are interested in what you are finding, what you're hearing interesting, do me a favor, please follow the channel. I am this close to 26,000. Thanks, Stuart. I really appreciate it. The Patreon is my bread and butter. Michael Boucher just joined the Patreon. Mrs. Toes chose not to, but she sponsored a live and sent me some money in PayPal. So, Mrs. Toad, I am a little behind on that, so we will get to you probably around the 1st. If you stick around, you should be our live sponsor around, probably Monday the 4th or whatever that Monday is. Greetings. Oh, Phoenix, Arizona. Love Phoenix. Okay, let's go back. Iran and Russia. They are preparing to sign a mutual defense pact on the 19th of January. The 19th of January. What happens the very next day? Oh, yeah. Now, Trump does not like the Iranians. With good cause. None of us should trust the Iranians. None of us should like what they do to their own people, right? So this mutual defense pact is scheduled to be signed on the 19th of January, right before Trump goes in. That officially solidifies the axis of evil from Tehran to Moscow to Pyongyang. And just a few months after North Korea signed it, we saw troops in Kursk. Are we going to see Iranian troops next on the battlefield? We don't know the answer to that. But we do know that according to South Korean intelligence, the North Koreans are getting ready to send another 90,000 troops to Russia. I figured it out. Kim was paid $315 million for 11,000 troops. That means that for him, the value of a Korean citizen is $28,636.36. That's the cost of a human life to Kim Jong-un. And he is happy to throw them away. Throw them away and line his own pockets with Russian money. It's disgusting. Well, Jeff, you're not wrong. The problem is they seem completely unable to do anything about it. They exist as property of the mullahs. So if they tell them to go, especially the regular army, you think they're going to revolt? Seems unlikely. He doesn't want them to come back to North Korea. He doesn't expect them to return. They were bought and paid for. He expects them to be disposed of. Because if they come home, they're going to be able to tell other people about what the real world is like. Come on, Bermuda, they're people. Anyway, that's Iran and Russia and the axis of evil. Now, let's take a look at Finland. So last night on the live, somebody mentioned that an electricity cable had been cut. And I was unaware of any electricity cables being cut because it just happened yesterday at 10:26 local time. And apparently, one of Russia's shadow fleet, the Eagle S, an oil tanker flying under a Cook Islands flag, was in the vicinity of the electric cables when 3 of them were cut last night. Now, it is great to see the locals not wasting any time this time around, right? With the Yang P, when the data cables were cut, they surrounded the ship at sea and kept it at sea for weeks before they finally pushed it to port. Not the case with the Eagle S. No way. They boarded it, they sailed it into port, and they are talking to the people on the ship. They're not waiting for any Chinese intervention. They're not waiting to hear from anybody else. They've commandeered the ship and are holding the crew for questioning. This is a good move, in my opinion. Seize it or sink it. I'm with you, pal. At this point, right? Because we know what these bastards are doing. It is time that NATO Lake become NATO Lake. It is time that there are blockades against, if they're going to keep this shit up, then blockade the ports. Blockade Kaliningrad, blockade Murmansk, blockade the entrance. Hey, everybody, Dr. K is here. Everybody say hi to Dr. K. What were you doing in that cute little hat on the Baltic Sea? That's what I'd like to know, Doc. And who was your photographer? Was hubby shooting? Anyway, so Dr. K, we are talking about the very thing that I saw your video on, the Estonia Link 2 and the cutting of those cables. You're in Germany for the holidays. Nice. Oh, Tannenbaum. Oh, Tannenbaum. You are a fashion plate. Yes, you are. All right, what do we know about this thing with the Estonians? So the Eagle S was known to have slowed at the spot where the cut happened. It has been taken, it has been boarded and taken, it has been boarded and seized, and the crew is being questioned. Related to that, some Swedish officials expressed their concern today that they're not getting cooperation around the Yang P, which is the ship that dragged its anchor for 100 miles, or I'm sorry, 100 kilometers, 60 miles, and cut 2 data cables between, I think, Sweden and Lithuania and Estonia and Denmark, if I'm not mistaken, but something like that. Was the anchor missing from the Eagle S? I do not know the answer to that. Did you hear that? I had not heard anything about a missing anchor. Now, the Yang P showed clear signs of having dragged its anchor for a long distance, right? Because that's a process that will damage your ship. The anchor is missing. So they drag their anchor and then cut it loose. Interesting. Maybe. We don't know. We'll find out. We'll keep our ear to the ground on this. The Baltimore airfield, which is in Russia, it's about 175 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The Baltimore airfield, which is home to the fleet of Su-34s, or I'm sorry, the Su-34s, the ones that drop the glide bombs, that was hit last night by the Ukrainians. We don't know what the damage was. We're waiting for a damage assessment. On the subject of the Ursa Major, right, the Big Bear, which is where we find the Big Dipper in the west, or Odin's Wain if you're up in Scandinavia. The Ursa Major, the cargo ship that sank in the Mediterranean, the Russians are now saying that it was sabotaged, that 3 explosions rocked the starboard rear and sank that ship. The Ukrainians have made no comment on the sinking of the Ursa Major. If the Ukrainians wanted to sink that ship, I believe that they have the capability to do so. I also believe the Russians are capable of blaming the Ukrainians just because they don't want to admit to their own mistakes, just like they did with the Azeri flight. Russia is down another Su-25. Over the Donetsk region yesterday, an Su-25 collided with a Russian Zala drone. The drone was destroyed. The pilot did survive. It is unclear as to whether or not the plane itself is reparable under sanctions. We just don't know. Now, this is a really interesting story, but apparently what's happening on the front lines inside of Russia, or on the Russian side of the line, is that companies are getting calls or getting contacted, probably via Telegram, by people who claim to be pro-Russian volunteers. Just like we got the cookies to all those frontline guys this past week, guys, they're getting calls like that from people who say, hey, we baked you cookies for New Year's Eve, or we got vodka for you, or whatever. They go to the meeting place to meet the volunteers, and then an artillery strike takes them all out. So they're being lured to these locations and massing in these locations and then being struck by Ukrainian artillery, which is which sounds to me like some coordinated effort between partisans behind the lines and the Ukrainian military itself. Now, I don't know that to be true, but it would be unsurprising to me if it turned out that this was a tactic that was promulgated either by the I or the Atesh group. This would be right in line with how they get shit done. The mayor of Moscow is saying the most crazy things. The mayor of Moscow claims that there are 600,000 soldiers wounded in the SMO that are currently being treated for battlefield injuries in the Moscow area. My cookies are fucking good, Fitz. Don't. You can say all you want about my singing voice, but do not mock my cooking, boy. My cooking is top notch. Top notch. The cookies, I got a video from a medical checkpoint in Sumy. Oh, I bake every day, Doc. Oh, wait, you're talking about food? Yeah, I do that too. I got a video from guys in Sumy at a medical checkpoint. Bunch of doctors and medics who do emergency, kind of like MASH, I guess, is what it's like. And I got video of them eating the cookies and saying, these are the best cookies we have ever eaten. Now, of course, it was an all-American pack, right? Thumbprints, peanut butter cookies, chocolate chip walnut, oatmeal raisin, right? All American cookies. So they had never had anything like it before. And I got a very, very nice video from the guys at the checkpoint. I got some pictures from some of the guys down in Donetsk. I mean, really, the guys in the shit in Kramatorsk who really appreciated it. So anyway, special cookies. You know, Pete, that's a good idea. New Year's Eve is coming. That, my friend, is a good idea. The PayPal is in the description. Feel free to send me the money for that ounce. How many did you make? So, Ed, our goal at first was to get 1,000 cookies to the front line for 100 men. So far, I'm going to say so far because New Year's Eve is a big deal here. And the Black Lakes Battalion, I'm going to do some more for them, but so far we've shipped out over 2,500. So we went from 1,000 for 100 men to several thousand for several hundred frontline guys. Okay, now here's something. Jarno says 2 helicopter teams landed on the Eagle S, asked to lift anchor, only the chain left. Yeah, that's interesting. No, I didn't do anything fancy, Clay. I just pumped them out as best I could. Benjamin, I assume that they're getting to them, right? Because I've only had one notice from Nova Poshta that the cookies weren't picked up. And so I called my contact at the battalion, and he said he would send somebody today. So I assume that they're getting through, because I'm only getting thank yous and videos of the cookies where they were meant to go. Oh, yeah, sure, Fitz. 10-ton anchor falls off all the time, right? Like, that's just, a bad wave catches it, and it's gone again. It's only 10 fucking tons or whatever. No, I didn't send any special cookies to the front line. Those guys need to be sharp. They're professionals, those guys. That's not a thing. Okay, so the mayor of Moscow is claiming that there are 600,000 wounded getting treatment. Oh, and all this treatment. Customized prostheses and all this care that's being taken of them. First of all, there are 51 hospitals in... Good night, Doc. Thanks for dropping by. There are 51 hospitals in Moscow. If every hospital, which they do not, had 2,000 beds, that's 100,000 beds. There's no way you got 600 wounded being treated around Moscow. We know what's really going on. What's really going on is that they're not taking care of their people. They're not taking care of their wounded. The wounded are being dumped back into society. The criminals that got out of jail to go to the SMO are being dumped back into society and are committing crimes so horrific that I could not even describe them here on TikTok if I was inclined to, which I am not. So I think this speech from the mayor of Moscow was all about trying to reassure people that they're doing the right thing and taking care of the wounded, which they clearly are not. We're getting word that in Kherson, they're not picking up dead or wounded at all. They are leaving the wounded to die on the battlefield, leaving the dead to rot, so that they can list them as missing in action and don't have to pay benefits. That's what's really going on. It's a sin. Today, the Ukrainian Air Force confirmed that now I talked about this the other day, the hit on the Kamensky Combine. That's where they make the rocket fuel. Well, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, it was a successful strike. A very successful strike is what they're saying. The plant is in Rostov, and it produces solid rocket fuel for ballistic missiles, MLRS systems, intermediate range ballistic missiles, and ICBMs. The Russians are saying that the plant was targeted with 6 ATACMS, which were all shot down, of course, and 4 Storm Shadows, which were also all shot down. And yet somehow, according to Ukrainian Stratcom, that plant is not going to be making any rocket fuel for anybody anytime soon. Good hit. Good hit. The Ukrainians, for their part, did not comment on what missiles or weapons were used. They did not say, which leads me to believe that maybe it was a homegrown missile. It wasn't Storm Shadows. Maybe it was Peklos. That is not impossible. France has completed training for the Mirage jets, pilots, and mechanical groups. That's all wrapped up. And France will begin transferring the 6 Mirage 2000s in January. The jets come with a full support package by the French, and enhanced electronic warfare capabilities is all we're being told. We don't know what those might be. Finally, the ecological disaster of those 3 oil tankers sinking in the Black Sea last week is untold. I saw pictures today of all kinds of wildlife washed up on the beach that will never swim again. The effect on the porpoise population, lots of dead porpoises. Fish kills, crabs, snails, everything is dead. All along that 60-mile, what is that, like 100-kilometer stretch of the Rostov and Krasnodar beaches. Now, common sense in crazy times, that should be, birds too, of course. That should be all of our concerns. There's 600 of these piece of shit rust buckets that Russia is using all over the globe. This was inevitable, and this will not be the last time if Russia is permitted to continue using those ships. It won't be the last time. We're just lucky that the first time, the only one affected is Russia. Okay, again, I want to thank Rocco, who is the sponsor of tonight's live. I want to thank the moderator team, best moderators on the Tickety Talk, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, Jay, and Travis. Thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, and to Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces. Thanks, Bermuda. So we got 12 minutes left or so. Floor is open for questions. Happy to answer any questions. I would encourage everybody, if you do not follow the channel, please give me a follow. I'm trying to get to 26,000 this week, and I am so close. So close. Hey, Jedi. Interesting news on the front. Well, there's a lot of interesting news on the front. One of those pieces is the Ukrainians took from a Cargo 200 North Korean a notebook. And the notebook has his notes from their course on how to avoid drones. And what it tells us is that the North Koreans are completely unprepared to avoid drones. They are completely unprepared for it. The other thing that it tells us is that the guys are North Koreans, no matter what their military ID says, because the fucking thing was written in Korean. So any of your bots that are talking about how, oh, you don't know there's Koreans in Russia. Russia doesn't need no Koreans, yada, yada, yada. Bullshit. Bullshit. Aiden, Ukraine has made their own long-range missile for Moscow. It's called the Trembita, after a musical instrument common in the Carpathian Mountains. We don't know yet how many they have or when they are going to use them, but they definitely can reach Moscow, according to what the Ukrainian Armed Forces is saying when they unveiled them earlier this week. So they've got them, pal. The question is, when are they going to use them? Dark Irish, you couldn't draw any better than a stick figure either. If you were in that meeting and you were taking notes, your guys would look just like those guys. Admit it. And I know that because mine would too. Thomas Veal, I don't know what an MSNJ is. What is an MSNJ? Sam Smith wants to know, do I think the U.S. helped develop them? Maybe. I mean, I would like to think we did. But the only thing is, Sam, you got to remember, Ukraine was the armorer to the USSR. This is where all that Oreshnik strike on Dnipro, that was on the missile works of the USSR because that's where all the USSR missiles were made. All the rocket scientists are in Ukraine, not Russia. All the nuclear scientists and nuclear physicists are in Ukraine, not Russia. So this country was the armorer to the Soviet Union. And now, that's an interesting thing to point out, guys, because we've talked about the fact how this war has decimated the Russian arms industry, right? They used to be like the number 2 armorer in the world after the United States. Now they're down to number 7 or something like that. And who's picking up the business? Who's picking up all that lost Russian business? Who's buying the latest and greatest drones? Where are you going to go for the latest and greatest drone technology if you're a country looking to defend yourself? You're going to Ukraine. The fact that everything that Russia tries to do to Ukraine backfires and hurts Russia and benefits Ukraine makes me desperate to find Alanis Morissette and explain to her the definition of irony. Because this is it right here. Oh, Clay, it's a target-rich environment, boy. There's lots of big, fat, juicy targets. Don't worry, Russia's not running out of targets. The Kerch Bridge has plenty of protection. You heard wrong. Anybody that said that is wrong. The protection is diminished right now. The same storm that sank those 3 tankers unmoored 23 of the defensive barges that were around the bridge. Didn't do shit about the anti-aircraft guns or the missile defense systems that are guarding the bridge. They're still there. What's the truth on 3,000 North Korean troops? What they figure real death toll of North Korean troops? So that 3,000 figure is not KIA. That's KIA plus WIA. And it also does not include AWOL. So if we think about KIA plus WIA plus AWOL, and we do it ASAP, you're probably talking about nearly half of the North Koreans are already wiped out, off the battlefield, gone, or disappeared. That's why Pyongyang is talking about sending the next batch of 10,000. They're on their way. The North Korean drone avoidance manual. It's a terrible manual, Mrs. Toad. In the stick figure drawings that Jun Suk Dai had made, which I believe was the guy's real name, not the phony Russian name on his military ID. In the stick figure drawings that he made, get this, one of them is get one of your buddies to be a decoy. Have the drone chase them while you try to shoot it down. Okay, boys, who wants to have the drone packed with TNT chase after you while we try to shoot it down? We saw a video from the drone itself of this tactic being tried in a sunflower field in Kursk. The guy shot his buddy. I mean, that's how that ended. And then the drone took out the guy. They are completely unprepared. Dnipro is Rocket City. Yes, it is. Those Cro-Magnons were true artists on their cave drawings. How do we get into that discussion? So again, the Kerch Bridge is not without protection, but protection is legitimately diminished. Is Russia threatening to annex Estonia now? Oh my God, these people live in an alternate world. Who listens to this shit? Russia is definitely threatening the Balkans. They're always threatening the Balkans. Rock, paper, scissors. Who wants to play rock, paper, scissors? Well, Spanky, thank you very much. I wish my own son agreed with you. He does not. He finds me tiresome. Hey, there's Daniel Ballard. Daniel Ballard is the sole reason why I have these 3 turtlenecks that you see me cycle through and these half a dozen shirts that I cycle through. It's tough, the wardrobe situation here. Now see, PT right there has numbers of cargo 200 of 77 and cargo 300 of 40. That's, what is that? That's 117, almost 120 in one engagement in that sunflower field. That's one engagement. There's no way Kim wants any of those guys back, Clay. I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if any of them ever saw North Korea again. Very surprised. Yes, they do. That's exactly what they want. They want to drag us back a century and a half to the age of empire building where might makes right. Well, you know, that's okay when everybody's got muskets. It's a very different thing when one side has the army that we have. Spanky, that kind of assassination is against international law. And if we're going to pretend to appreciate international law, which Putin and Kim and the guys in Tehran just shit on every day, we can't do what they do. Do you think the Koreans know this? Benjamin, I don't know what you mean by this and which Koreans. The Koreans in Korea, the Koreans in Kursk. What is, it's unclear to me. The Kremlin is out of ATACMS range. We will not be sending ATACMS to the Kremlin. Yeah. I mean, no vaccines, horses and shields, let's bring back polio, and a permanent underclass of peasants that the wealthy oligarchs can buy and sell when they need a heart or a liver. That's the way the world should be. Well, Refurb Man, look, if John wants to talk to me, he can just send me a message. We don't need an intermediary. Hey, Daryl Roberts. Okay. It is just about 1 o'clock here. And I like keeping the lives under an hour because then I can post them. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, countrymen, non-binary folk, I am Peter Alexievich. This is the Live at 5 from Kyiv. I want to thank our sponsor of tonight's live, Rocco. Thank you, Rocco. And then also the moderator team, Cheyenne, Vanetta, PT, Jay, and Travis. Lars, who has the Nightshade, who has the Peters Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and Lars, who has the Discord server. So thank you all so much. It is Christmas, guys. The PayPal is in the description if you're feeling as generous as Mrs. Toad was. Very grateful, Mrs. Toad. Thank you. And for more long-term support, consider joining the Patreon. For $5 a month, you will gain access to the exclusive content that I post there. Can any of the Patreon folks speak to the quality and... I will keep my voice down, Mrs. Toad. Thank you. And usefulness of that information. You know, a lot of the stuff that I go over in News We Are Waking Up To ends up in the live. But if you're a Patreon supporter, you get it 12 hours before everybody else. You are more prepared for the day than anybody just coming to the live. Just a thought. Just a thought. So there's our... Thanks, Nightshade. Take a look. There's one in there that nobody else is ever going to see. Nobody else is ever going to see. Thanks, Van. And remember, free Patreon subscriptions are available. You can join my Patreon. You do not have to pay for it. Your support is very important to me. Just the fact that somebody wants to listen to me means a lot, right? I mean, really, how many people want to listen to you in real life? Not very many. So if you're one of those people that wants to listen to me, just join the Patreon for free. And that support is meaningful to me as well. Why are Qatari, Dubai, Turkish, Chinese, Indian Airlines still operating in Russia? Because they're part of the BRICS alliance, right? Those countries are all either nominal members, charter members, or associate members of BRICS. And so they have an economic interest in being engaged with Russia. China is Russia's largest trading partner, responsible for 36% of its imports and 40% of its exports. So that, thanks, Cheyenne. Thank you. So that those kinds of ties bind them together. Bermuda, that's pretty tightly regulated. You'll have to talk to Lars Magni about that. Lars, do you want to get in touch with Bermuda about that? Okay. Mes amis, ça va? Ça va bien? Merci. And good night. Bonsoir.